What is going on, everyone? My name is Jazz, and thanks for entering the Lobby of Hobbies, where we share games that we enjoy in hopes that you discover something worth checking out. Now, on this episode, I'm going to be sharing with you my favorite two-player only games. So I'm going to give you my top 10. We're going to briefly describe what they are, how they work a little bit, and hopefully you can find something that you want to check out as well. So let's get into this one. So we know 2020 has brought with it some craziness, and when it comes to the board gaming hobby, the ability to get together with our gaming groups has pretty much become, non-existent. So many of us have had to find alternate ways to continuously game. Some of us have resorted to playing games online, some of us have gone into playing more solo games, while others are trying to convince that person in the household to try and get a two-player game or play a game at two players at the table. Now we know there are some games that just don't play well at two, they play better at a higher player count. So I'm going to give this list to you of my top 10 that play best at two because they're only two-player games. So let's get into this list with my number 10, and that is an abstract game from Smirk and Laughter Games, and that is Shobu. Shobu I can best describe as an abstract chess-like game, but think of it as instead of having one large chessboard where you have a black player and a white player, you have these black stones and white stones, but they're going to be placed on four individual smaller chess-looking type boards that are separated by this rope, kind of dividing the four boards in half, two on one side of the rope, two on the other. Now the object of the game is for one player to knock their opposing player's stones completely off of one particular board. Any of the four boards, if you knock all of your opponent's stones of a color off that board, you win. So on your turn, you have two actions you can do. You can do a passive move action or an aggressive move action. On your passive move, you can move any of your stones up to 2 spaces in any direction. And on your aggressive move, you get to move a stone of your color on an opposite colored board. And with your aggressive move, you can move the same number of spaces as your passive move, but with the caveat that you can actually push one of your opponent's stones off of the board. So knock all of your opponent's stones off of one board and you win the game. This is one game that plays very fast in about 15 minutes, and I thoroughly enjoy it, and I think it's worth checking out, especially if you're into abstract games. Now my number 9 is a nice little dueling deck builder card game, and this is called Star Realms from White Wizard Games. Now Star Realms is set in this space theme where players are going to start off with a starting hand of 10 cards, and on their turn they're going to be playing a certain number of cards out, and they're going to try to use the purchasing power on the cards and the attack power to purchase new cards from the center row where they can add to their deck and create a stronger deck, and use their attack power to dwindle their opponent's life down to 0. The first person to knock their opponent down to 0 life is declared the winner. Now if you're not really big into the space theme, White Wizard does have a version of this game called Hero Realms, which is more set in a fantasy themed type setting. So check out my number 9, that is Star Realms, but if you like fantasy, check out Hero Realms as well. Now my number 3 is another dueling type game, but this one, instead of just being cards, this one is what I like to call Battle Yahtzee, and that is Dice Throne from Roxley Games. Now Dice Throne, opponents are selecting a character, and they're placing this character board in front of them, and they're taking a set number of dice for each of those characters. And on their turn, players are rolling those dice like Yahtzee style, trying to create combinations of small straights, large straights, whatever the case may be, to activate certain character abilities on their player board to be able to attack their opponent, and again take their opponent's life total down to 0. The opponent after one opponent attempts to attack, the opposing player can choose to defend and block some of the damage coming their way, or in some situations, even counterattack. The game has some very neat, intricate card play that will allow you to do certain things on your turn and even upgrade some of your abilities to make them stronger. So if you're a fan of Yahtzee, but it's a little bit too boring for you and you want something with a little bit more bite to it and that plays competitively, definitely check out Dice Throne from Roxley Games. On to my number 7, which is the only cooperative game on my list, and it has been climbing up very fast on my 2-player only game list, and that is Codenames Duet. If you're familiar with the very popular party game Codenames, that one is played in a team base. This one is played cooperatively. You and your partner are trying to give each other clues from a clue card that you're given, and each person has one side of the clue card that they're seeing that their partner cannot see, and they're trying to give each other one-word clues that will point their partner into the direction of what word they're trying to correlate to that clue on a set of 5x5 cards that are in a grid out on the table. You have a set number of turns that you can actually get all your words in, and if you do so, then you pretty much win the game. What's cool about this game is that it has a campaign mode that makes where certain levels are a little bit harder or a little bit easier, and you're just trying to go through and continuously challenge yourself into acquiring and finding all the words between you and your partner. So definitely check it out, especially if you're a big fan of Codenames, or if you're just a fan of word games in general. Check out Codenames Duet, which is personally my favorite way of playing Codenames. So on to my number 6, which is a neat little card game that I think packs a heavy punch, and it's heavily strategic. Not hard to play, very easy to play, but very strategic, and it's played with a deck of 21 cards, and that is Hanamakoji from Deepwater Games. Now in Hanamakoji, players are trying to win the favor of these geishas that are being laid out on the table in a larger card format, and players are going to be shuffling a smaller deck of cards, and they're going to be dealing out a set number to each other, and on their turn, players are going to draw a card and activate one of the 4 available actions to them on their turn. Within a round, players only have those 4 actions available, so they have to be very careful in which action they activate at what time during their turn or during that round to be able to beat their opponent. Players are going to be playing cards out in front of them, in front of these geishas, and whoever at the end of the round has the most valued cards in front of each geisha will win the favor. Players have to get to either a set number of points of favor from the geishas, or win over, I believe it's 4 geishas, the favor of 4 geishas to win the game. But what's very intricate and very interesting about this game are the 4 actions that you have available. Some actions will require you to spread 3 cards out on the table from your hand, and your opponent gets to choose one of those cards and you get the other 2. So the intricacy of how you use your actions and when you use your actions is one that really keeps me coming back to this awesome 2-player game, and that's my number 6, Hanamakoji. Now my number 5 is a small box game that packs a big punch, and that is Targi from Cosmos Games. Now I'm a big sucker for worker placement games. I have too many in my collection, but having a small box worker placement game that plays well and plays, obviously it's only plays 2 players, but plays great at 2 players is something that I love a worker placement to do. But this one, instead of having a board, has a set of cards that you will place out in a border, and inside the border, or think of a frame, and inside that frame you're going to place different types of cards. There are tribe cards, and there are also resource cards. Like your standard worker placement, players are placing their workers out on the bordered cards on the outside of this frame, and using their placements to look at the end of the round, look at where their workers intersect in the grid, and then they will either gain those resources or gain those tribe cards. Now, the tribe cards, players are trying to play them out in a tableau, and to do so you have to pay the certain resources, and players are trying to build this tableau of a 3x4 grid of cards in front of them, potentially putting out 12 tribe cards, which is the end game trigger, and whoever has the most points at the end of the game wins. Some tribe cards give players special abilities, but what's also neat about this game is that the border around the play area has this robber that will block players from going into certain spots and doing certain actions. So if you like worker placement games, if you like games that have a lot of nice thinky aspects but are very easy to play but also very in-depth, check out Targi from Cosmos Games. Now, my number 4 is a fun card style game. Most of these 2-player games honestly are card driven, and this one is Raptor from Matagoat Games. Now, Raptor players get the choice of either being scientists or being the raptors, or the velociraptors. And the scientists are trying to capture baby raptors to do experiments, and the velociraptor side is you're playing as the mother raptor primarily, trying to get her baby raptors to freedom and not captured by the scientists. Players on their turn players are given a deck of 9 cards, all number valued 1 through 9, and each card has not only one number on it, it also has an action that is an action ability correlated to that card. Players will start off with drawing 3 cards, have a hand of 3, and play 1 card face down. Players will look at their cards, and they'll look at the numbers that are played and then the difference of those numbers. Whoever played the highest number will take the difference of those numbers and then do that many actions. So if I played a 6, my opponent played a 2, I played the 6, I have 4 actions that I can do on my turn, and whether it's move my characters 4 spaces on the board to try and get my raptors to safety, I have those actions. Now, the player who played the 2, my opponent, would not be able to do a set number of actions, but they get to do the card's ability. And many of these abilities are super powerful, but it's the balance of when to play the action, or when to try to get the action, or when to try to use the card's ability makes this game really fun. And again, you only have 3 cards to choose from on your turn each round. So definitely check this one out. It's very fun. I love the theme, and that's Raptor from Matagoat Games. My number 3 is a very popular card game, which is a 2-player variant, or a 2-player version of its bigger brother called Seven Wonders, and this is Seven Wonders Duel, which is a card drafting game for 2 players where players are trying to build a tableau of civilization cards in front of them, and whoever has the most points wins. That's one way of winning the game. There is what they call a science method, where you can kind of win with trying to get a set number of science cards, and there's also a military track that is like a tug-of-war military track, and you're able to win that way as well. But what really makes this game neat is the drafting element in the game, where players will have cards out in front of them, some face up, some face down, and players will only have access to the face-up cards that are readily available and not covered by other cards. As players draft cards, other cards that are face down will become available, so they'll flip over and become available to the opponent on the turn. So that push and pull of when you are going to actually uncover a card, and when you should do it, or should you let your opponent do it, uncover a card for you, because you might be giving them something good. So this is one to definitely check out, and that is Seven Wonders Duel, and this one is from Repost Production Games. On to my number 2. Now, my number 2 is a game that I think is highly overlooked, primarily because of its theme, and I think, although me being very into the theme, I'm a huge baseball fan, I think the mechanics is what makes this game shine, and that is Baseball Highlights 2045. This one is a 2-player deck builder where players are, playing their various players from their deck, out into this play area in front of them, trying to garner hits and steal bases and prevent their opponents from scoring. And of course, like in baseball, whoever scores the most runs in a mini game is declared the winner of that mini game. The mini games play anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes, and sometimes even shorter than that. But you can play a best of 7 series, a best of 5, however you want to do it. But this game is really fun. I think what makes this game very interesting is the card play, where you might have some cards to play that are counteractive to your opponent, or huge counters, I would say, to your opponent. So your opponent might have their human, and if you play a cyborg, this cyborg does well against humans. It can let's say the cyborg will change all the opponent's hits that are humans from hits to walks. So if my opponent played a human card that was threatening 2 home runs, and I played that specific cyborg, it would change my opponent's home runs into just walks. So instead of scoring 2 runs, my opponent has a runner on first and second base. So this game, again, is very fun. If you're into baseball, definitely check this one out. But if you're really not into baseball and you're just looking for a good game with very solid mechanics and very good tactical card play and counter card play, check out Baseball Highlights 2045. Now, on to my numero uno. Now, this one is one that when I played really blew me away. I was hearing a lot about it. It was getting a lot of buzz back, and it's a 2019 release. This one is from Capstone Games, and this is Watergate. Now, Watergate players have the choice of being either the Nixon administration or playing the press. Now, the idea of the press is to create a web of evidence and uncover evidence that will link some informants, or at least one informant, to President Nixon with that evidence. So there's a board that's placed out in front of players. There will be a Nixon picture in the center of the board with different web lines, like almost like a pin board that you would see at a police station where they're trying to gain evidence and trying to solve a crime or whatnot, or of course in a newspaper a company where they are creating evidence or creating stories and timelines of what they're trying to accomplish for their story. So the Nixon player is trying to win the game by not allowing the press to uncover this evidence and gain the favor of one of these informants, and the press is trying to do exactly that, find the evidence and pin it to Nixon. What's very interesting in this game is the card play. The cards that you have in your hand can be used various ways. They can be used for an action, and some of these actions are one-time actions where if you play a card for an action, that action is so powerful that card is actually discarded from the rest of the game. Or the cards will have a number value in the top left-hand corner, and it will tell you how many times you can do a specific action. On the board as well, players will have this tug-of-war track, and the tug-of-war track will have pieces of evidence on them, as well as a momentum token and an initiative token. And when you play a card, you can look at the number value if you choose not to use the action and move, whether it be the evidence, the momentum token, or the initiative token, closer to you. And wherever those tokens are at the end of the round, that player will gain those tokens and be able to either pin evidence onto the board if they're the press, or if they are the Nixon administration, pin the evidence face down onto the board, blocking the press from uncovering evidence. And Nixon's also trying to gain a set number of momentum tokens to win the game. The initiative token is pretty cool because whoever wins the favor of the initiative token at the end of the round will get the first player turn order in the subsequent round. So this is definitely one that, while it's very easy in the streamlined gameplay. It's one that has a lot of intricate details in how you play the game. And man, have I seen this game swing from round to round, where you think you have the game right in your grasp, and then your opponent plays this one, bombshell type card that really foils your plan, and it really, has that aha, that wow moment at the table. Every time I've played this one, it's been a hit, and I've even played this with non-gamers, and they love it as well. So that's my list of my top 10 two-player only games. Now, again, this is a very subjective list. This is what I enjoy playing. I enjoy playing with my friends, and specifically my wife. But if there's one that I didn't mention, doesn't necessarily mean that I don't enjoy it. It's probably one that I just haven't played enough, or I've never been introduced to it. If so, why don't you drop the name of that game down in the comments below? I'd love to talk to you about those games, because, hey, I'm always looking for great two-player games to try out, or maybe even add to my collection. So again, I'd love to hear from you. If you like this content, you like this list, and you want to see more, why don't you hit that subscribe button along with that bell icon so that you can be notified anytime I drop a new video. And as well, give us a thumbs up if you like this list. But I love to talk and chat with you in the comments down below. And I'll see you on the next episode here of the Lobby of Hobbies. Have a good one, guys.